Welcome to Women in B2B Marketing, a show where CMOs, VPs of marketing, and all strong women leaders in B2B discuss their top tactics, strategies, and tips for building high-performing teams, leveraging trends, and ultimately rocking their marketing careers. Made by and for women, insightful for all. I'm your host and 15-year B2B marketer, Jane Serra. Let's dive in. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of Women in B2B Marketing. And today we have with us Linda Melone, who was referred to me by a couple people, I believe, to talk all things copywriting, especially conversion copywriting, which I'm pumped to get into. So she is the B2B copywriter and copy strategist at the Copy Worx, her company. And she has 15 plus years of experience as a copywriter across various industries, which I'm excited to dive into. So thank you for joining us today.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be great.
I've already learned a ton from her about the best camera to use, the best lighting. So many things. I'm excited to learn more. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So first thing I always love to dive into, can you tell us how you got into this world of copywriting and now for B2B marketing, just your career path to where you are today?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to make it short because there's a lot of convolutions in that whole road. I've always been a writer. Like even as a kid, my mom told me that the teachers would say to her, she makes up these stories and she's really good. And so that's always been kind of there my whole life. But for the longest time, I had an interest in food. And I went to school for nutrition and I worked in test kitchens as a recipe developer. Found I had a knack for desserts and I ended up as a pastry chef. And whenever I do something, I never do anything halfway. It's always like, I throw myself into it. I become obsessed. When I was in that cooking phase, I collected cookbooks. I had like 300 of them. I used to read them like novels. It was just nuts. Yeah. And then I love the dessert. And so I end up opening up a small bakery. And what happens is I tend to throw myself into things and I burn out because I put so much into it. And I reach kind of this ceiling where I have to make a decision. Like with the bakery, it was like, am I going to grow it? Or am I going to bail? And I was going through some really tough personal stuff in my life. So I got out of it. And at the same time, it sounds like a contradiction, but I was always into fitness. I'd go to the gym after running my bakery. People be like, who smells like muffins in here? And I'd be in the locker room. And it's like, it's me. And then I ended up just realizing I really wanted to do the fitness thing professionally. So I ended up being a personal trainer. And so for about 15, 20 years, I worked as an in-home trainer. So I started in small studios. I'd work in studios and people started asking me, you couldn't come to my house. So I did that. It's a really weird thing because you have to be really good with people. And I'm an introvert. So the one-on-one thing was fine, but you get wrapped up in like their personal lives, especially going to people's homes. Yeah. And I grew to be very empathic. I was like inadvertently thrown into personal situations, like with families going on. Like I'd walk in, the family's having a fight. This happened one time. And I'm like, just standing there, like, I'm just here to work out with you. And so, and at the same time, there was a magazine and it's called OC Metro for Orange County in California. Yeah. And it was a free magazine that I found on my driveway once a week. And I noticed they had a fitness column and I thought, I can write this. And so I pitched the editor, hey, how about an article on how to purchase home gym equipment? What do you need to look for? He's like, sure, go for it. So I wrote it. And I'll never forget, still, how those moments in time are like frozen, like things that happen that really change your career. Phone rings and he said, this is great. He goes, would you like to write more for us? And we'll pay you, I think it was $250. And I was just bowl over, like, he's actually going to pay me to do this? I can't believe it. Yeah. And so I ended up working for this editor for years. And I started with just a couple of articles. Then I had a column. Then I was writing cover stories. A lot of times I ended up writing most of the magazine. And then they folded like everyone else at the time. But I had at that point branched out into national publications. And so over the years, I accumulated a lot of accolades. I was in, I don't even know if they're still around, Family Circle, Women's Day.
I remember them.
Fitness magazines. I was in Time magazine. So cool. all of them. And then the bottom fell out. Like around 2014, I started losing business. Everything was going online. And what I used to get paid $1,000 for, I was now getting offered like $200 and buying all rights. They wanted to buy all rights. If you Google my name, because of the unusual spelling of my last name, you can find my byline like everywhere, because they repurposed the articles and it looks like, oh, she just wrote for, MSN last month. No, I didn't. That was from 2015.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, how crazy.
And so I ended up kind of combining everything. I said I was going to make this long story short, but apparently it's not. Oh,
I love this. Keep going. I love it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So then I ended up starting an online fitness business. So I combined my writing with the fitness. And that's actually how I first learned about marketing, because I had to market myself. I didn't do a very good job of it. I was kind of winging it. I was launching products and courses and creating work, writing my own emails, but I had a lot of success with it, just kind of by accident. It was sort of a weird thing. I did that for about 5 years. It's not that I burned out. I couldn't make money on it because my target audience was women over 50. And that age group, I wanted to do high-level coaching. That's not the age group that is really open to high-level coaching, unless they were entrepreneurs themselves. A lot of women they didn't have that kind of income, or they're on fixed incomes. And a lot of women were over 60. And so it just wasn't working out. And I was just putting out so much money for the software that had to keep the online business running, the churn rate on the memberships. So I went back into writing, but I went into copywriting. And that's how I got where I am, is just, I still wanted to write, but I didn't want to do what I had done, the content.
Yeah.
So now it's really just working.
An amazing journey though, because it also sounds like you were in the selling courses game well before everybody else was starting to do that. Because it feels like in 2024, the past 3 years, it's just blown up, right? Everyone's creating courses and selling courses online. But it sounds like you were doing that 10 years beforehand.
I actually kind of missed that wave, because I had worked with some coaches that really caught the wave of the course, like the Amy Porterfield wave, where everyone, when you started back then, you could really make some money. And it was harder. The churn rate, I had no idea like how hard it was to keep a membership going. And I thought there was I had somebody taking care of that. And when I said how many people were losing, how many, I'm looking at the numbers, I said, this doesn't make any sense. We're losing as many people as we are acquiring. She's like, no, that's accurate. And I'm like, what? And it was a rude awakening. Yeah.
Yep. It's hard to go into, there's so much competition as well, especially as more and more of online came in, right? And now it's probably 10 times harder right now with AI and all that you can do there.
Yeah.
Oof. So getting into copy and going back to your love for writing, what do you think you love about writing? Is it the storytelling that compels you to keep going back to that career path?
I think it's that. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like they say, when you are in the flow, you heard that expression.
Yeah.
You get lost. I just get lost in writing. And I find, copywriting is different than content writing, because copywriting is really based on metrics and analytics and customer research and a lot of it. And there's a saying that copywriting is assembled, it's not written, where content, like if you say to me, you can write a blog on a subject, I can kind of go hog wild with. Ideally, I'd like to interview people to get their stories in it. But it's weaving together. I feel like I'm creating, it's art to me.
Yeah.
But it's just
it is
it's not like something you can hang on a wall, but I feel like I'm relaxed after I write something. It's like I've kind of gotten something out. It's a weird feeling. It's just the artistry of it.
Like a dopamine hit probably when you get the right words together. I love that. I've never heard that phrase before, that it's assembled, not written.
Oh, you haven't heard that? True. Those aren't my words. That's some famous copywriter said that, but it's very true.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. It makes so much sense when you say that. I'm like, that's so true, because I've worked with great content writers who can write amazing ebooks and put a ton of content together, and then SEO on top of that, and we get tons of traffic like that. I'm not saying that's easy. That's a whole nother level of difficult, a different set. But copywriting, it's so hard to find solid copywriters. And usually, I mean, sometimes you find people who do both. It seems like you're that unicorn, but it's usually one doesn't do the other.
Right.
And it's hard to find that person who can properly assemble the right words that just hit you like, yes, now I get what that company does.
Yeah. It's a different approach. And I've had battles on LinkedIn about it. Like there's, because I wrote content for like 15, 20 years and now I'm doing copywriting and I had to learn a whole new set of skills. And I've had people say, oh, it's not that much different, or I don't see how anyone could say that because it was so hard for me to transition into copywriting. And I had a lot of experience in content. Yes. I think it's because people say, well, copywriting is to get people to take action. Like that's the goal of it. And I've had people say, well, content writing is too, but it's a different way. Like content writing is more kind of running in the background. It keeps you top of mind with your customers. Yeah. And you could have a call to action in a blog, but it's not really the purpose of it,
Exactly. And the call to action, the copywriting for that call to action to make people take that act, like that's a piece within the content, right? That has to be created.
They call it micro copy.
Micro copy, all these new terms and expression. I love that. I'm going to ask a big question. Where do we begin with copywriting? And I mean that there's so many different levels here, but for instance, if there's a marketer that's coming to you and we're just saying, okay, we come to a new company, we're starting at a new brand, messaging just needs a rework. Where do you recommend they start? Is it the homepage, like their emails, a tagline, or where do you kind of begin your process with a marketing person?
The first thing I look at and the first question I ask them is what their value proposition is. And that's kind of become a specialty of mine because a lot of companies don't know what it is. And they will either stumble over it, or I've been hired because I had one person say to me, you asked me a question I can't answer, so I know I need to hire you.
Wow.
Because that's the main, like a lot of times what I do with a new client is I will have them do like a value prop audit. I'll go through, it's just a ton of research. It takes weeks to do this and interviewing their customers and then coming up with what really sums up what they do, who they do it for, and why somebody should hire them. And then all the copy comes from that idea or that statement. And you can have a couple that are sort of related. But when I work with a new client, I will go back to that statement over and over again. Does this fit that? And so it doesn't really matter what it is. Most people, though, will start with an email, like email sequence for me, because if they don't know me, I don't know them. It's kind of a low entry, let's try a 5 email sequence is usually what they do. And then we kind of get to know each other a little bit. It's pretty rare to have somebody just say, I need a landing page, although that happens. Home pages, which once you do a homepage, though, you want the voice to be the same throughout the whole rest of the website. So you kind of have to carry it through. But emails probably are the first thing. And then other times people come to me for ads, Facebook ads. I don't do as much of those. Most of what I do is like landing pages and home pages.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a different creative process between different formats? So when you're getting into, if you come in on an email project to start, and then they're like, oh crap, we actually need you for everything. We need you to do the homepage and these landing pages, help us out everywhere. Do you have a different process for each medium and each format that they're asking you for help with?
It's the research, like most of what I do is the background research. So that stays the same. The outcome is what would be different. So an ad, for example, has to be right out of the gate engaging, and you have to have a really good hook, especially like a Facebook ad, which is what I've done the most of, where a landing page, you have a lot of room to, you include, it's more SEO based, and I can explain things more. The words, the page can explain, there's more engagement. Ads are quick. And the thing is with ads is that the fewer words you have, the harder it is. Like people think, oh, it's just a few words. It's, it should be less money. No, it's not, because it takes longer to make sure that those words are exactly as impactful as you want them to be. So I'd say the background process isn't any different, but the outcome and how I approach the final piece is where it changes.
Yes.
because
And
it's just,
I'm fully with you on the ads being anything that's short copy is the hardest because you have to, it's like the H1 on a homepage, like the header is also just so difficult because you have to capture it in less than a full sentence, right? And as few words as possible, get their attention and want them to look at more of your site.
The best examples, and we kind of use it in the copywriting world as a gold standard, is the Apple ads, because they are usually 1 or 2 words, but they're just perfect. It's like, who is on this team? Like, I want to work for them. But
that is, they are, like, think different. Their first one, well, not first one, but first memorable to me, right? That's like got them on the map.
And it's 2
you're
words.
Right, all of their ads. Yeah.
2 words, but it says everything,
It's crazy. Speaking of words, and I want to get into conversion side of copywriting too, and the landing pages and what you find converts. But are there any words that you found throughout your career that are on either end, right? Either just really sticky that you tend to keep using because you see success with them, or that there are words that you just avoid at all costs?
Lately, it's been, and I did 2 posts on LinkedIn about this and both went viral. Anything to do with marketing speak. The words that like saying innovative, revolutionary, world-class, right? Game changer. That one, they don't mean anything, cutting edge. Yeah, I did a whole thing on words to never use in your copy.
Oh, I love that.
Both of them went viral. Both times I wrote those. And pretty much anything AI spits out, because they're getting it from the internet, right? So it's what everyone else is saying. So we're going to say it too. And because I do use AI for idea, like just to get ideas and to outline things and to extract main points. But whenever I ask it, like, can you reword this? It always spits out something that's very just what everybody else is saying. I'm like, this is not going to work. It reassures me that I'm still needed. There's job security. AI is not there. I love that. And I can completely see why that would go viral, because in marketing, there's 2 things that marketers make fun of ourselves about. Well, probably many more than 2, but 2 that come to mind right now. One is marketing acronyms, just galore. We love to have acronyms for everything. And second is, those meaningless words like innovative. There's so many, like with super, and just, I can't even think of them top of my head because I try to banish them. Cutting edge. Anything that's like, oh, it sounds good. What's your superpower? And sometimes I find myself using them, like, and they're not something you never say, but you really want to back it up with something specific. Like if you say you're innovative, tell me how. Don't just use the word. Describe it. Yes. I know one of my last companies, supercharge, was the word that we kept coming back to internally. And then on the marketing team, we were just like, we can't say supercharge. It's one of those words that everyone says, but what does it mean? Right.
But you're right. There are some times where there's a word that's overused and misunderstood, and it does encapsulate what you are trying to bring. If you can explain it and back it up, there are exceptions to these rules, right? But that's funny. Are there any words that on the opposite side you are drawn to and are using?
There's one word that I've written about this, and it can turn around an entire piece of copy, is the word you. Because most copy is about the company. We do this, we have this, our team, blah, blah. And it's always about the company or the person. And if you just took anything that was talking about you and you turned it to you, meaning, the person reading, the reader, that would turn the whole perspective around. And that's the most important. Other words like exclusive, people like to know that they're exclusive. And so I buy so much makeup, and so I'm always getting these ads from Sephora's and Ulta's. And I like the exclusive ads because they'll get you in, like our sale starts next week, but for you, because you spend so much money with us, here's a way to spend even more. And I fall for it. And I know what they're doing, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I still feel special.
There are certain words like VIP and exclusive. I agree. I always still like if there's an event invite, exclusive invite for
Yeah.
XYZ and VIP invite, it gets people to open. It's like
I
a good
know.
subject line word, right?
Yeah. We know it too, right? Being in the
Yeah.
marketing world. I mean, you know it. And it's like, all
Yeah.
right, I know what they're doing, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
Still intrigued.
Right.
Yeah.
Still want to know.
I love that. Those are great ones. And turning it, the conversation, yes, I think all marketers are guilty of this at certain times. And sometimes we don't realize we're doing it. So it's a good check of saying, just spitting all of the capabilities at people instead of the problems we solve. Like your pain point is
Right.
XYZ, solve it with this. Like instead of we can do this, we do this. Agreed. It doesn't draw them in as much.
Yeah. I get
So
that even
great
with
points
people who
there.
want to be on my podcast. They're like, this is somebody, because I get bombarded with, people are like, I want to be a guest. I have somebody who can be a
Yes.
guest, and this is what he or she has done. It's like, I want to know,
Yeah.
what are you bringing to my audience? What is it that,
Yes.
they can learn? I guess it's easy to fall for, but that's such a simple fix. If you go to any copy on a website and you just start looking at it in that way, you can improve it like instantly.
Yeah. Do you find yourself doing that because that's just what you do for your
Oh,
career?
always.
Do you find yourself evaluating and judging
Totally.
words everywhere you go? Yeah.
Especially SaaS companies, because they
Yes.
love to talk about their features, and
Yes.
a lot
We
of them
do.
are not like that as much anymore. Like MailChimp and like the bigger ones are, they've kind of gotten a hold on it. The really good ones are not doing it. Like the ones that don't know yet. Yeah. It's still rampant.
Do you follow for landing pages? Then we can get into the conversion side of things because it ties into this. But do you follow a certain framework? I'm not going to remember the names of them offhand, unfortunately, but like there's the certain sales frameworks for web pages that are out there for like identifying pain points and then this and that and like exact
PAS?
methods. Yes, exactly.
Pain agitation solution. Yeah, there's two that I use a lot. The PAS, so it's pain agitation solution, is the easiest one. It's easy to remember. It's what I first usually go to for pretty much anything. And the other one is AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. That's the one that's used a lot by Apple. And so it's a little harder to pinpoint because it's attention. You have to get their attention, interest. It's really just pulling people in, and desire is like you really want to hit on what do you want? What is your audience desiring? And then the action that you want them to take. I usually rely on PAS for at least to start and see. Like SaaS tends to like AIDA, the attention one, better, but both can work. It's about testing.
Do you use these methodologies or frameworks for everything, or is it more for landing pages specifically?
It's everything, even an ad.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do you can have like 3 sentences and have it follow a formula, just hit on what they're doing that is painful and then driving that point home and then offering a solution. It doesn't have to be anything longer than 3 sentences. There are ads all over that use that.
Yeah. Do you also, when you're creating your copy, do you tend to have visuals that you would like to accompany this too? Or do you kind of leave that separate and provide the copy? Is it a chicken egg situation on which comes first?
If I'm doing a landing page, like they say that copy determines design, I like to know, I like to have a general idea. I'm a very visual person. So I want to know I usually work with like a designer along with the copy. So that's what I did for one particular site I was working on. I knew the person. I met him on LinkedIn and we both worked together. And it was between the two of us, that page got a 40-something% lift in conversions. 11% was attributed directly to my copy. But it took a year before they were able to say, okay, this is the difference between the redesign and the control.
Wow.
When it comes to like an ad, I used to do a lot of ads for fitness companies. And so I worked with a Facebook ad specialist, and it was really difficult because there's so much Facebook doesn't allow. Like a picture of a tape measure. They don't allow a tape measure. It makes people feel bad.
Really?
Yeah. I had that on one of my, definitely no before and after pictures. I mean, you can't, it can't be any of that. So I would put
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's really strict. But I got good at it because that was when I was doing my own business. So I'd have a stack of pants with an apple on top. Like, okay, we can work with that. But it's hard.
Work around.
Yeah.
Wow.
Depends on the platform. But Facebook ads are really tough. I don't know if the other platforms have visuals so much. Well, Instagram, I guess, would.
Yeah. Or also just like landing pages, right? Like when you're thinking of copy and structure, because I imagine it's hard if you're just creating the copy. Like sometimes probably there's a visual that they already know they want to use and they can give that to you, or sometimes it's a blank slate and you're, like you said, copy will determine visual. So I can see it going both ways in different
They
situations.
usually just put up what they think. Like usually the designer or the person, the founder, somebody chooses it. The only thing I don't like is the whole thing about video now for headers.
Yeah.
I find it really distracting. And according to the research I've read, unless ambiance is a big part of your brand, you should just stick with a static picture. But if it's like a vacation destination, something like that where you really want to get a feel, then I could see it. But everyone's like overusing it. And to me, it's like, I want to read, what do you do? And then, I'm distracted by people dancing or doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Even, do you think for SaaS, where a lot of times you'll see video and it's showing their product, right? Like demonstrating, trying to give that visual, is that just distracting? And you think that wouldn't help convert? It's taking away?
I don't know. I would test it. I mean, how all these things are. I think video is great, just not if you are, you have the value proposition on the front hero section and you want people to know that. I think it's we can't really absorb all that. I mean, especially somebody like me. I mean, I'm all over the place. Like, it's like, oh, look, shiny. And I'll forget what I'm even on the site for. So, you have to test it and see what converts better.
Do you have any other conversion tips for us marketers? Like what would help convert? And I keep going back and forth on formats, but if it matters, like landing page versus email, just what you see from a copy perspective that we need to keep in mind or not do, things to avoid either way.
I think the most important thing is to know where your visitors are coming from. So you want to know what stage they're in their decision-making process. So you've heard of that whole, they're unaware, they're pain aware, all of that. So unaware, if they don't even know that they have a problem, that's usually not someone who's going to find you easily. But there are cases where, you do bring that up. There's here's an example, and it's kind of a silly one, but it really bugs me lately. Have you noticed all the deodorants for total body? Like, how smelly are people? Have you seen these? Like, are people really not aware of, like, do I smell? It's like, should I use it? Like, it's a total body deodorant thing. So that's somebody, like, if you don't even know you have a problem, like, that always cracks me up when that comes on. And I'm like, who are these people that are just deciding that
don't realize
stinks?
it? Yeah. That is so funny. I love, there's the Mega Babe brand that just came out with, like they have, for their thighs and they have deodorant and stuff.
Really?
But now they came out with, I think it's Mega Man, and it's for like their lower regions, like different. It's just so funny, and their ads are hilarious. But yeah, I hear you. That I do see that more and more lately.
When it comes on at our house, I'm just shouting at the TV, how about taking a shower? How about just bathing? To get back to that. So if they're coming from an ad, for example, so they're already solution aware. They know that you have a solution. So you don't want to send them to your homepage. You want to send them to a landing page that picks up from where that ad left off. So that's, I think, the most important thing. People tend to send everyone to their homepage. And if you already know what the product is and you want it, you don't need all that. You want to just be, it should pick up where the ad left off so that they just come to that. I mean, that's probably the most important thing. And also to know, again, the value proposition everywhere should be evident. Like, what makes you different? Most people can't talk about that.
Well, you said that a lot of what you do and with copywriting is based on data and research. So where do you begin on that front when you take on a new client?
I start with a discovery call with the client. It's usually like a long hour and a half, really digging into questions they usually don't even think about that I'm suddenly drawing a blank, but it's everything about their customers, what they know.
Yeah.
And then second step is really to talk to their customers, previous customers. This is the hardest part because a lot of people don't want to talk. But if they are really, like, I had this one client who was a leadership executive coaching company, and their people, the people they coached, love them so much. Everyone was like, oh, I'll talk to her, because they have to reach out and say, would you be willing to talk to a copywriter? That's where I get the best information, especially the words they're using. And interviews. So I start with those, and then I get into all the analytics. I have a whole list, and I send them like, this is my wish lists, and most people don't have a lot of it, but it's everything from social media. It's all their analytics on their website. Are they using, Hotjar? Are they using some kind of tracker? I want to see where people are falling off, if it's relevant to what I'm doing for them. And then, it takes a long time, but I love sites like Reddit because people talk completely unfiltered, and you find out what are people complaining about? What are they saying about your competitors?
Yeah.
And I'm naturally nosy, so I want to know.
It probably takes you down many rabbit holes, right? As Reddit tends to do.
It's like, wow, they're really saying all this.
Yeah. And then it gets you to know, that helps you identify differentiators that maybe they don't even know that you can highlight.
A lot of times, because what I do then is I present that. If I'm doing just the value proposition audit, a lot of times we'll start there. So then I give a whole presentation on, this is what I found. This is what your customer said. This is what your competitors, what they're saying about your competitors. This is where I think, you differentiate. And sometimes it's something really simple like customer support, which was one of them. Everyone's complaining that I keep calling this other company and I get caught in a phone loop. But this one, they answer their phone and they're nice and they respond. It's simple, but different enough.
Yeah. How often do you recommend your clients revisit this? So go conduct another audit like this, right? Because I'm sure audiences change, the value prop could shift.
It's not something you have to do that often. Sometimes I'd say the copy can change. I've been on sites like, there's a couple sites I'm on all the time because they're copywriting ones, and they seem to change their header and their homepage like every few months. I think that's fine. You can try it and see, if there's a difference in engagement and conversions. Once you have the value prop, you don't have to keep changing that unless you're doing something completely different. And then your value prop is going to change. But that should stay the same pretty much.
Yep. Makes sense. Do you think the customer interviews piece, like that part should be more regular to see what, like your value prop could stay the same, but maybe pain points are changing in the industry?
Sure. If there's new changes, if there's, it's kind of hard to say. I just know, like I had somebody that I'm redoing their website. I wrote it for them like 4 years ago. And so I'm going to revisit probably not the same people, but I said, I need to talk to a few more people that are your current customers. So I don't think I have, you don't have to go through the same process, but probably a couple of people you'd want to talk to and make sure that they're still saying the same things.
Yeah, that does make sense. Like I know in the world of marketing, when you come to a new company, a lot of times marketers tend to want to redo the website. It's like a big new project that tends to happen when you come on board. That could end up being a new website every year, every 2 years, every time, because I think, what is it? The average tenure for a head of marketing is 18 months around there. So does that mean a website gets updated every 18 months? So 18 to 24. I wonder how often, like this company, you're saying 4 years. That's great. That's, to me, that seems like a testament to your copywriting, that for 4 years they kept the same messaging. It was working for them. So that's huge.
Yeah, it seemed to be. And it's also just people get bored, if they're regular people that regularly visit your site. Like I always like when I go on a site I've been on and they've changed things, like, oh, this is cool. As long as it's not confusing. If you've completely changed your approach, then it's like, what happened? Why is this completely different? Then,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any guidance on, because I'm keep thinking conversion copy, right? Like that, I come from a conversion platform background. So speaking my language here. I'm curious if you have any direction on CTAs and buttons. How important is the copy that's on the button, and how do you determine what works there? Any secrets for us?
I have, yeah, there's one that I always use. For one, you have to keep in mind that the button is literally the conversion point. Like when people hit that button, they're either going to like what they see on the other side or they are not going to like what they see. And I think the most important thing is to keep it really relevant to what they want to do. So to complete the sentence, I want to sign up. Like, and I also, my research shows if you put it in their words, like sign me up instead of, sign up, seems to relate better. I want to, sign up or tell me more. I would just say avoid learn more because it sounds like a lot of work. Like, what do I want to learn? And there was a whole article. Somebody sent this to me about how Facebook, that is one of their default buttons, and they should do better because that's on everything. I remember when writing Facebook ads, I couldn't change that. It's like, I said, I don't want to say learn more. It's like, well, that's what we have. You can't.
Yes, their button options are horrific.
Yeah.
They don't make sense. Like learn more is basically the only B2B button available on Facebook ads. There's like nothing, or sign up. I think there's sign up and learn more.
Right. Right. And I think to also change, like you can have the same destination for the buttons, but change as I said, it's called micro copy. So change what you say on each one to see if people tend to click on one more than the other. So if you see like a long sales page and there's like all kinds of buttons and they're all really going to take, or if it's like a home page and it takes you to a sales page or something, you could have different buttons, say different things and see if there's one that people tend to click on more. But you can get creative with them. Just I want to, this is for me, or let's get going, or something that really sounds like a person would say.
Yeah. Natural language. Do you think that is kind of key as something to keep in the back of your mind as you're rewriting copy? Like this sounds like a human wrote it. It's not like overthought marketing jumbo.
It shouldn't be on autopilot that you just stick things up there. Whenever you're tempted to I'll just put this up, learn more. I hate that phrase because I don't know what to expect. You want people to know what they're clicking on. So if if they click on something and it takes them to a page they're not ready to click on, they're just going to bail, especially if it goes to a sales page and they're not ready for that.
So interesting. So many years ago, and so things changed. It's probably like 8 years ago. I remember reading something, I think it was an email study where learn more statistically was getting more clicks in this email versus the study that was going on, like versus whatever other term they were using, but learn more versus I think a harder sell like buy now or sign up that has more commitment attached to it. But so I've always had in the back of my mind that learn more was a good CTA because it just gets them to click through. But I think you're nailing the ultimate conversion piece here that's missing, right? Is we're talking maybe it gets more clicks through out of curiosity, perhaps, but then they're not knowing what they're clicking through for. There's not that intent to follow through on that page and actually convert.
Right. So, and a lot of times there's a lot of debate too about should you put a button on the hero section, that top section of your homepage?
Yeah.
I was told because I've worked with a number of copywriting coaches, that you should not, because people will click it even if they're not ready. But it's like, oh, it's a button. It's like, oh, shiny.
Like happy.
And if they're not, but SaaS companies usually do. In fact, they usually have two. One that says,
guilty.
Start a free trial. And it's always about testing it, and see what people do. And maybe it is appropriate. Maybe it does work. I don't know. It's not up to the copywriter. It's really up to what does the audience do with it. Yeah. If you find, so you're familiar, I'm sure, with Hotjar, those tracking analytics. If people are clicking on it and then going to whatever page and then they're leaving, that would tell you that they're not ready for that. There's also something I wanted to mention called instead of call to action, call to value. Have you heard of that?
Ooh, no.
This would be a button that takes them to a different part of the page, maybe. It's like, you've probably seen those where you click on something, instead of going to another page, scrolls you down to the bottom.
Yeah, anchor links. Yep.
It's sort of like a learn more.
Okay.
But it gives them more information.
I love that. That sounds like a really good thing to test on the homepage, the header piece, because oftentimes the homepage, especially nowadays in the scroll culture, right? We make them so long.
Right.
And often people are not going to get to that bottom, very important section that you have there. So if you really think that they need to see this piece, clicking to as an anchor link down to that section. I love that idea. I've never thought of anchor links on the homepage, the top section.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Especially
Things
like you
to
said,
test.
a long page. Yeah, a long page.
Yeah.
Because sales pages. And it's funny because those really super long sales pages are shown to convert better than short ones, even though people complain about them. But research shows that they work. And I think the reason is it takes you through those decision-making stages. You know, so you could start with pain aware. And as you're reading through your solution, okay, this is a solution, product aware. So maybe this could be for me. So you kind of take the person through all those stages until you're the only one.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. And it's kind of like all of those Facebook ads. I mean, for me, Instagram ads get me late at night. And I go through those rabbit holes and I get on those pages that are endlessly scrolling and all the CTAs that are the same to get to buy the product. Then after you buy the product, they upsell you 5 other add-ons to the product.
You know what's funny? I have fallen for so many Facebook ads. I have never, I think maybe once, but other than that, I've never been happy with what I've bought. They're usually products from China, and then you can't send them back. And I've just the worst products, and they're nothing like what. And so I'm just so disillusioned by, like, what I do is I'll take that name of that product, I'll go on Amazon and I'll look for it.
Yeah. And look at reviews. I've trained myself to do that too, so that it's much like we know what we're getting. Yeah. Or like we'll get scam alerts. So like, okay, avoid this. Don't buy from this company. Yeah. Sometimes you can tell, right? Like the quality of the site. That is sending. If it's too loud and in your face, lots of exclamation marks, I'm like, okay, I shouldn't go through this.
That's awesome.
We talked a little bit about this and how the world of marketing and copywriting has changed so much over the past 10 years, really. And I'm sure beyond that. But how do you see it evolving in the next few years with AI and just everything that's changing and trends? I mean, really, AI is impacting everything. So curious how you see that impacting your world and copywriting.
I mean, the answer that most copywriters say, which I agree with, is, kind of weeds out the bad copywriters from the good copywriters, because if you're relying on AI to do your writing, it's not going to be good. But what makes me really a little bit nervous is thinking how last year I never even used ChatGPT. I don't even know if I heard of it. And now AI is like everywhere. In fact, somebody complained, I don't know if it was on LinkedIn. They said saying that you're now with AI is like a selling point. It shouldn't be a selling point. I don't know who is using that in their their ads or on their landing pages. Now with AI, it's just changing so fast. I have no idea. I was listening this morning to a radio. There's this really funny radio show out of LA, and they were talking about, it was Friday, it was National Radio, whatever it was. It's like National Radio Day, and how few people listen to the radio anymore. And it made me think, like, are we going to have, like, now everything's podcasts? Yeah. Are we getting rid of radio? Like, I don't know.
I hope not. I still listen to the radio every time I'm in the car. It's like default.
It said 80% of people still listen to the radio at some point. Like, it's not completely dead. But I mean, I didn't expect this whole thing. But like when my business changed, when everything went online and all the print publications, like there's none. I used to write for Self. They're not even around anymore. All the print publications.
Oh, they're not. I used to love that magazine.
I met the editor years ago. But all of those have folded up, and I didn't expect that. AI, no one saw that coming. I don't know. It's not
like, what's next? Yeah.
Flying saucers landing and going, hey, we'll show you.
Well, apparently in Miami, that's a thing now, flying saucers every year. There's stories. I mean, it's beyond Florida man now. We have crazy news stories down here.
And who knows? It's not any crazier than some of the robots I've seen that they're using. It's like, this is really freaky. So the answer is, I don't know, because things are moving so fast that I can't imagine. Yeah. I think the human element of being a copywriter and being able to infuse stories, like that's something AI can't do. AI doesn't have a story. It doesn't have a history. So as long as people can continue to use, personal stories and emotions, because that's really how people make decisions, I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, I think there's AI will be able to imitate, just like robots can imitate things, but is it really going to be like people? And if it is, I hope I'm not around for that.
I know, right? We'll see how good it gets over the next few years. But I think you're right that the human storytelling piece, I can't imagine ever being replicated. So
yeah, and that's what sets us apart.
For now. I want to ask, what is one thing you would tell your younger self switching into the world of copywriting, deciding to come back into this realm and really going into the copywriting side of things? What would you tell yourself now that you know so much more?
It's hard to say because I did it step by step. I don't know if it would be worth it. Would have been worth it for me to work within a company, like a marketing department. I think probably that, like getting a job within a company where I was doing copywriting, because that seems to be, for one, it's a big selling point when you go out on your own. I never had that. I've always been self-taught. I've had coaches and really high level coaches, but I never worked. I don't know though. I'm so not a corporate person. I'm just the worst employee. I've always done my own thing, but I mean, I have worked for other people way back in the day, but I would always have a side hustle. I just can't not be an entrepreneur. It's very weird.
Yeah.
But I would probably suck it up and go into, a marketing department, really see how they operate and everybody's roles and kind of soak all that up before going out on my own. That's probably the one thing I'd do different.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because then you'd learn a little bit of who you're selling into also and how to work with those different team members of the department.
Because all my coaches have worked in corporate before they went out on their own.
Yeah.
And that's what sells them, like Joanna Wiebe, I don't know if she's a founder of Copy Hackers, and she was with Intuit for 5 years. And so she established herself there, and then she went to Crazy Egg and some other big companies. And I know that's where she learned a lot of, what she teaches now. So that probably would have given me an advantage. I don't know if my younger self would have listened to me though.
Right? Like, nope, can't do it. Not for me. I wonder now, because everybody's going into this fractional thing, right? Where it feels like fewer and fewer people are going to be dedicated full-time employees, and many people are becoming fractional so they can work with many brands, and then the brand doesn't have to pay for different, like full salary, right? It's half the time and all different benefits, etc. So I wonder with this shift, if you were kind of ahead of the game. And it also matters to me, I think, wonder what brands you work with. If it was full-time capacity or not, if you can put that on your portfolio, right? Like these brands versus I was a full-time employee at this brand, you worked on copywriting for this brand, seems to be one and the same nowadays.
I don't know. I just know that the people that I listen to and the ones that I've learned the most from have all worked for these big companies. And so,
okay.
But I also think it's knowing how a company works. Like even when I, as a copywriter, pitch a company, sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure who's the best person to write to send. I mean, it'll eventually, if they're interested, they'll send it to the right person. But just knowing how it all works together and everyone, but all I ever hear on LinkedIn is how people don't work together. Sales and marketing, silos. It's like, how can that be? I thought they were supposed to work together, but it would help me understand, how all of it comes together in the end. Kind of like, and I've never seen this, and this is really bad for me to say, but Mad Men. Everyone tells me you have to watch it. I know that I'll get too excited watching it. I won't be able to relax and go to sleep. So I can't, but I do have to watch it.
Get you too amped up. Yeah, it's a good show. it irks me too much. So I never got through the whole series because it was, I mean, obviously the name of my show, Women in B2B Marketing, I'm very much pro getting women out there. And that time period was very not so much. So it's hard for me to get past that and enjoy the storyline.
And it's funny because even now with copywriters, you just hear about the male copywriters, the ones that, the people who are, John Caples and John Carlton. And there's just, you don't hear about the women as much. And it's funny because women, we know the emotional, we're more empathic. Man, I'm, generalizing here, but I mean, I think I can get to the emotional part of copy faster than a man, even as a personal trainer. There were male trainers that would specialize in, I'm going to help women who are going through menopause. You have no idea. You have no idea. I don't care what you
I've
read.
never seen that. That would crack me up if I saw a man trying to say he could specialize in training women going through menopause.
Yeah,
wow.
I saw that recently on some website. I'm like, dude, just stop. I mean, you just can't. You have to know what it's like.
There's certain things that you can sympathize with and learn about, but it's different when you have gone through it or you're going to go through it. Like you can relate on a different level.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, Linda, thank you so much for sharing so much with us today on copywriting. I literally have a few things I need to go and test out myself and check for all of my Learn More CTAs everywhere because I'm sure I have them. So thank you. And if anyone wants to learn more from Linda, where should they go and how can they connect with you?
On LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post almost every day. And then my website is the Copy Worx with an X, the Copy, WORX. And I have my own podcast as well, B2B Marketing and Copywriting. So I love it.
And we will link to that in show notes, everybody. So take a look there. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Linda. And again, for sharing all your wisdom and tips and tricks. I will be following you on LinkedIn for sure to get many more over the years. So thank you.
Thanks, Jane. This has been a lot of fun.
And everyone listening, if you like the show, rate us, like us, share with a friend. It helps us get in front of more eyes, more ears, and more women, more people. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.